Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today's topic is going to be explosive. A lot of my students have been asking for the last 10-15 days, to make a video about relationship, about how the married life is going to be about like, and when will they get married, or if they've been through. A couple of my students have been through a few breakups, so they're like, okay, is it always going to be like this? So today's video is for them. And also for you guys, if you're new to my channel, consider subscribing to my channel. I bring in new topics based on a lot of research that I've done on in astrology. I've been in astrology for like 10 plus years minimum, where I have been practicing astrology on a day-to-day basis. So feel free to write me a question or any comments about this video, so we can start with the topic as of today. So first things first, before you do any prediction, when you look at the chart, if you're new at looking at the chart, or if you're just looking at your own chart, the first thing you need to understand is what are the important houses and what exactly are you looking at. So if you're looking at your friend's chart and you want to predict when is he going to get married or how the married life is going to be, the first things first, what you have to consider, and otherwise all your predictions are going to be wrong, is does his chart promise a marriage? Is there a marriage? Is there a possibility of marriage at all? Or is this going to be a conversation, people come together and so on and so forth, but never get married? So that's one of the chances you have to take. One of the things that you have to first look at in the chart is whatever predictions that you're going to make, you have to first see if there's a possibility, if the houses, the planets that promise marriage, are they connected to each other, and so on and so forth. So the first things first. So we are going to talk about 5 different topics today. This topic is so huge. It's kind of impossible for one person to talk for completely bring everything together within like half an hour, 20 minutes on this topic. The topic is huge. There's a lot of research that has been done on this topic. It's one of the topics on which research is quite easily possible, because all you need is charts from 2 people, and then you want to have a look at how their quality of married life is. There are a lot of celebrities that you can look into, but let's start with that. So the first question, what we are going to talk about today, is number 1 is, does your chart promise marriage? How to see if there is any possibility of marriage in your chart. The second important question is timing of marriage. If there's a marriage, when will you get married? The third important question is, what is the quality of your married life? So if you do have marriage, you did get married, and what is the quality? Is the quality bad or good or whatnot? Next, is there a chance of divorce in your marriage? Now, again, the topic is huge. I can only give you a few pointers, and it's going to be general idea, but I can definitely tell you that. If there's no divorce, what are the trouble years for marriage? Or how can you save from divorce if you know that these years are going to be tough years? So which are the trouble years for your marriage? So these are the 5 questions that we're going to take up, look into today. Again, I am going to try to be more accurate at the same time, give you all the details, but again, as I said, there's so many aspects to it. You need to consider that you need a personal consultation. You can go ahead and do personal consultation with some professional astrologers. As of today, as of right now, I do not do personal consultations. I do read charts for my friends and families and students, but no one else. So let's start. So the first things first, does your chart promise marriage? There are indications that you have to look in the chart. So whenever someone comes to you, or whenever someone comes to me saying that, okay, I'm 32, 35, 27, 26, 25, 24, sir, can you see a marriage in my life? Or can you see a marriage in my chart? Or, my parents are pushing me for marriage. Because majority of people that I interact with in terms of marriage, I'm talking about Asian countries, I'm talking about India. Okay, so when they come to me and they say, okay, can you see marriage in my chart? When will my daughter get married? When is my son getting married? And all that stuff, and how are they going to treat me after marriage, and so on and so forth. So the first things first, I look at the possibility of marriage. So the first thing, marriage in itself is the seventh house from the ascendant and moon. Now, whatever number of house I'm going to say, you have to focus and you have to consider the same house from the moon ascendant, as well as your lagna, that's the main ascendant, moon sign and the ascendant, both. Okay. Different people have different kind of interaction and activation between stars when it comes to moon chart and when it comes to ascendant. So you cannot, if you're just looking at the ascendant and you're making predictions, you can be terribly wrong. And a lot of times your predictions can be wrong, because if your moon's nakshatra and your moon's placement and your moon is more powerful than your ascendant, you're most likely going to be wrong. And there is one more possibility, that you have to look at Jupiter, which is a Jiv Karaka in your chart. You have to look at the Jupiter. A lot of times, you have to put the Jupiter as an ascendant, whichever house Jupiter is sitting, you have to bring it in the ascendant and look from there as well. But that's probably a little bit more advanced technique. You should right now concentrate on the ascendant and the moon sign. 90 or 80 plus percentage of the time, if you're focusing on ascendant or the moon sign, and if you're doing basic chart reading, or if you're just doing it for a hobby or research purpose, majority of time you will be able to find a solution or an answer. Okay. So the first things first, you have to look seventh house, the condition of the seventh house. Where is the seventh house sitting? Seventh house Lord sitting. Is there any malefic, bad influence on the seventh house or the seventh house Lord? That's the first thing you have to look at. So when I say bad influence, I usually, for the seventh house in itself, if you have Saturn in the seventh house, or if you have a Jupiter in the seventh house, or a retrograde Jupiter in the seventh house, or your seventh house Lord is retrograde, which means in Hindi we call it Vakri, which means it's closer to the earth. That was the time it was either on the standpoint, or it was moving backwards in astrological terms. Obviously the planets don't move backwards, but that's how you put it. So if these are the planets, or if this is a condition of a marriage, seventh house, the chances are your marriage may break up just before the day of marriage, or there may be no marriage, or there may be conversation. Everyone may bring in the topic. There may be a time when everyone talks about marriage, but it never turns out fruitful. It kind of just mellows down and just goes away over a period of year. So Saturn in the seventh house, I've seen a lot of people's chart. There are two possibilities depending on the dignity of Saturn. Either you do not get married, you marry very late, or your partner is older and or significantly older or significantly younger than you. There could be an age difference between you and your partner. Now, things change if Rahu comes into play, or North Node comes into play. Then it gives you an illusion. So there could be a minor age difference if you have Saturn and Rahu sitting in the 8th house. But Saturn needs to be strong in the 7th house. If Saturn is strong in the 7th house, the chances are, in the male chart, the chances are you may have a huge age difference, or you may never get married. Because 7th house, remember, it's also the house of, in many ways, it's a house of connection with other person. So if it takes a lot of time for you to connect with other person physically and or emotionally, or connecting with other person, it's going to take, if it takes a lot of time, chances are the marriage just breaks off before it even gets started. You may have in your heart, but you may be suspicious, or you may have a fear in your mind to get married that may give you trouble. So that's number one. Number two, Saturn in the 2nd house. Saturn in the 2nd house aspecting your 4th house, someone who's inherently looking to live alone, someone who is inherently fearful to carry out a married life. So that can cause some problem as well, but not as prominently as if Saturn is in the 7th house. If 7th house is the first house that we look at, and the planet that you may want to consider is Saturn and Jupiter. Look at the conditions of Saturn and Jupiter sitting in the 7th house. In a female's chart, you want to look at Mars, because Mars represents husband in a female chart. just as much as Jupiter signifies husband, Mars signifies more husband's energy. If you have a debilitated Mars as opposed to strong Saturn sitting in the seventh house, the chances are, um, in a female's chart, you can say that, okay, you know, the chances are you would not get married, or your relationship just wouldn't start. It would be missing a battery. So you have a car, but it does not. There is no charge in the car for it to run. So that's what debilitated Mars would do for a women's chart, a female chart. For a male's chart, you want to have a look at Venus, or the house that Venus rules, especially Libra sign and Saturn. What is the condition of Venus? Is Venus heavily afflicted, or Venus in a bad condition? And compared to Venus, if Saturn is strong, again, the chances of you getting married is kind of dim, or you interested in getting married would be dim as well. So that's one house. The second house you want to look at for marriage, if to consider if there is a marriage possibility or not, is the fifth house. Fifth house is a house of romance and children. So there are a lot of couple who do not intend to have children, or there are a lot of couple who do not intend to who do intend to have children but don't have children. So that's one on the other side. However, fifth house also represents romance. So you want to see if you're getting married, is there romance involved? So in the Western countries, obviously the only type of marriage that majority of times we come across is love marriage, which we call in India, we call love marriage, or marriage by your own efforts. So that's seen by fifth house. So if fifth house Lord is sitting in the seventh house Lord sitting in the fifth house, Leo sitting with Venus, and so on and so forth, these would show that there is a chances of igniting romance between two person, or in your life there is a chance of love in your life. And obviously, since there is a possibility of love, there is a possibility of marriage as well. So if the fifth house Lord is good, seventh house Lord is good, if they're aspecting each other in anyhow, or in a good aspect or good conjunction, the chances are there's a possibility of love marriage in your chart. Then you want to look at the ninth house. Ninth house is basically fifth from fifth. It's Bhavad Bhavam, and also third from seventh, which is your partner's efforts. So maybe you are in a relationship, maybe everything is okay, but it just does not convert into marriage. Every single time you approach a girl or a guy, they just do not want to commit. And that's basically your ninth house. So if your ninth house is weak, or if your ninth house is afflicted, basically it means that you keep on dating for a prolonged period of time, but it just does not convert into marriage. Or every time you bring up marriage, your partner is talking about some or the other things, some or the other topics, but just not interested about marriage. So that's basically your ninth house. So you want to see the condition of your ninth house. Ninth house is also your future in the ascendant chart. Or again, whatever houses, again, I'm reiterating the fact that whatever houses that I'm talking about, you have to look from the ascendant as well as the moon chart. Some people have significant power in their moon chart, and some have significant power in the ascendant chart. Again, the power depends on if the ascendant Lord is weak, the ascendant is heavily afflicted, the ascendant Lord is heavily afflicted. On the other hand, moon is safe and just a little bit better than the ascendant. Probably you want to have a look at the moon chart. Okay, so ninth house. After the ninth house, then comes the 12th house. 12th house is basically the quality of pleasures, your bed pleasures. What do you do? Your sex. Do you enjoy sex, and so on and so forth. So 12th house and the 8th house both represent the same. 12th house is basically your bedroom. So if you have planets in the 7th house, 6th house, 9th house, and 7th house, 9th house, 5th house, but you do not have any planets or any positive influence on the 12th sign Pisces, or you do not have any influence over your 12th house, or the Lord of the 12th house is completely gone, like it doesn't even exist almost in your chart. If you see that kind of planets, then you have to consider that there is no chances of marriage. There is chances of talks about marriage, the chances of meeting people for marriage, the family gatherings for marriage and everything. But at the end of the day, I've even come across a chart where a person got married, and the day The guy and the girl, they went away. They went for their honeymoon, and the girl called her boyfriend, and the boyfriend came in and picked up just before they consummated the marriage. So these are extreme conditions. But this shows that what is the condition of 12th house. If a person would look at the condition of a 12th house from the first marriage and so on and so forth, they would know a 12th house, 6th house. Again, you have to look at those houses to see if there is any possibility of marriage, marital happiness. Are you going to live a fulfilled married life or not? So that's basically the houses. So again, it's the 5th house, the 7th house, the 9th house, and the 12th house. Second house for after marriage life, but basically the quality of married life would be second house and the 8th house. But 5, 7, 9, and 12 are the houses you want to check first before even you start predicting when you're going to get married. If you're going to get married or not is more important. Okay, so that covers the first question. It's already 15 minutes, so we're going to have to run faster. So the second is timing of marriage. So when will you get married? If you get married, when will you get married? So this is pretty easy. You can check it in a lot of charts. You can go to Astro Sage and download celebrity horoscopes. Again, it's dicey. Not a lot of horoscopes are accurate in terms of timing, but there's a way how you can accurately predict a time based on certain events. But anyways, coming back to it, so to see if when you get married, number one, you have to see the Mahadasha and Antardasha. That's basically your major period and sub-period of the seventh lord. That's the first thing. Seventh lord or planet sitting in the seventh house. These are the two things, either or, especially the major period somehow gets influenced, will have an influence in the marriage period. Now, even before you get into it, again, you have to look at, is there a chance for early marriage, or it's going to be a late marriage? I've known people getting married at 17, 18. I know it's illegal, but in certain states, but I've seen someone getting married as soon as they turned 18, and I've seen someone getting married at the age of 42 as well. I've seen the charts. And you can clearly see, if you've seen enough charts, you can clearly distinguish. So Mars is a planet of swift. It's basically a planet that wants quick results. So if you have Mars afflicting, or Mars sitting in the seventh house, Mars sitting with Venus, or Mars sitting with in the Libra sign, or anyhow aspecting Venus, strong aspect, and Venus being weaker in the sign, and it's also conjunct with the fifth house, the chances are your marriage is going to be, or you're going to meet with a partner relatively at a younger age, the person you're going to get married to. So that's the reason we need to know this, is because we can predict when the timing of marriage is. So essentially, your marriage could happen anywhere after 18. It can happen anytime in your life, and every 12 years there's going to be transit of Jupiter. Every 30 years or 6 years and 5 years, there is going to be a transit of Saturn aspecting your 7th house, and so on and so forth, depending on where it sits. So not just a transit. Again, Mahadasha and Antardasha, if you have multiple planets sitting in the 7th house, it can be quite confusing when exactly are you going to get married. However, it shouldn't be that confusing depending on what planets are sitting. If look at the Mars, look at the Jupiter, look at the Saturn. If Saturn's sitting in the 7th house or Libra, or sitting with Venus, the chances are you're going to get married at about over 28, 29. But if you have Mars sitting in the 7th house, the chances are you will meet your partner for marriage relatively at a younger age. Again, there could be influence of Mars and Saturn both, and you have to look at which one is more powerful to influence the 7th house. So that's how you see it. So first is Mahadasha and Antardasha of the 7th lord from the ascendant as well as the moon sign, or Venus Mahadasha or Antardasha. Now Venus is a natural karaka for 7th house. So a lot of time you will run through a Mahadasha of Venus, and if the transit supports, and if your marriage age, your proper age for marriage, you will get married at the Venus or Mahadasha as well. Specifically major period, not so much for Antardasha, but specifically for major period. 99% of the cases, if you're able to see this, you will see majority of cases would fall under this principle. Mahadasha and Antardasha of planets sitting in the 7th house, first house, aspecting 7th house, the lord of 7th house, or Venus Mahadasha and or Antardasha. So majority of cases you would come across this. Then you also have to look to support, like Venus Mahadasha, for example, is for 20 years. So when exactly in that 20 years are you going to get married? So first principle, are you going to get married sooner or later? So that's the first principle. The second principle, Mahadasha, Antardasha, and third is a transit of Jupiter and Saturn. So Saturn, remember, if you see had a look at my previous videos, you would know that planets are constantly in move. So whenever Jupiter and Saturn, they're aspecting your seventh house or seventh lord, that's the time you will get married. So it's basically a combination of this and this coming together. That's when you get married. What will be the quality of your married life? How will your married life will be? So one of the important things that you need to know is dignity of Venus. So how good is your Venus? How good is your seventh lord? Is there any bad afflictions on the seventh lord? I've seen a lot of people, staying married for a long time, especially in India, but they don't basically have a married life. They live together for society, for family, for kids, and so on and so forth, but they do not have any kind of marital happiness. They do not argue with each other, nor do they have any sexual life, or nor do they enjoy a personal time with each other. All they worry about is the social image or the society that they're living in, or worry about their kids. So that's basically your seventh house. You have to look at the seventh house. Venus, look at Venus, what the condition is. Venus is it heavily afflicted? Is there a Venus and Rahu affliction on this? Rahu is an illusion. Remember, if you have Rahu in the seventh house, it's going to create an illusion that everything is okay in marriage. But at the end of the day, there could be something that's secretive in the marriage that's going on, something that's illusion, or for the world it could be amazing, but there could be something wrong. Same goes for when there is Rahu and Venus. Venus, Rahu in the seventh house, Rahu with the seventh lord, or any of these nodes conjunction with each other, you can say that marriage could be, quiet. There could be something missing that the world doesn't know, but there's definitely something that that's going under the bed. The second thing you want to look at is a condition of Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. So again, if Jupiter is aspecting seventh house, somehow whatever the condition is, it will somehow save the married life. It will somehow sustain a married life over a period of time, regardless of what the quality is. So Jupiter's aspect definitely saves marriage and marital aspects. You want to have a look at the second house and the eighth house. Second house is happiness. Any chart, you want to look at the fourth house for happiness. Okay, fourth from fourth is seventh. So fourth house is the primary life happiness, a house for happiness. 10th house is fourth from seventh. So that's basically your 10th house gives you happiness from marriage. So you want to look at the 10th house, the fourth house, and the seventh house, the lords of these houses. How are they situated? Is there a happy married life or not? You can see that. Again, it's a huge topic. We cannot continue to talk. If I start talking about it, it's going to take more than an hour for me to complete. Then you want to have the next question a lot of students ask is there a chance of divorce in my marriage? Divorce is primarily ruled by sixth house. If you talk about a sign, it's ruled by Mercury sign Virgo, and you want to also have a look at the 12th house. So if 12th house is heavy, 6th house is heavy, 7th house is weaker, Venus is weaker, 6th house Lord is stronger than the 7th house, Saturn's sitting in the 6th house, and 7th Lord is weaker than Saturn sitting in the 6th house, it may show that there would be a divorce, and not only a divorce, it would be a prolonged divorce. It may go or sustain for 6, 7, 8 years. Or, in many cases, especially in India, you would see that there is no divorce, but they're separated for a long time. They're living apart for a long time. So they're legally, they're just living two different lives in two different cities. They have heavy sixth house presence or an affliction from Saturn to the seventh house. Second is Venus and Mars. Now this is a big comment from me, but if you have Venus and Mars sitting together, the chances are that there could be a chance of separation in marriage. There could be a chance of break up marriage. Now you have to look at the nakshatra lord in which Venus and Mars are sitting, and what is the condition of the nakshatra lord dispositor. You also want to have a look at if they're both sitting together. And especially, all these planets, I'm only talking about D1, that is your Lagna chart. There is also D9, which is primarily Navmansha, which you want to have a look at the quality of married life as well. But I'm only talking about D1 today. So you want to have a look at what is a condition in your main chart and how they are all brought together. If they're all brought together, and if certain planets which are bad sitting in the sixth house, which gives you legal troubles, and seventh house lord is weak, which means your engagement with the partnership is weak, but your engagement to fight is stronger. So you can fight better than compromise. Seventh house is diplomacy. Seventh house is partnership. So where you have to be diplomatic, where you have to be, kind of let go of a few things and then take control of a few things and so on and so forth. But if your sixth house is strong, it means you're not diplomat. You're more stronger about what you want. So if your sixth house lord is strong, your 12th house lord is strong, which is again isolation, and your seventh house lord is weak, then you will be separated. Venus, Mars, you have to consider if they're in close conjunction. There are so many possibilities, but I'm not going to talk about everyone. But if the other partner has Mars and you have Venus in the same sign, there is a strong attraction towards each other. But in your chart, if you have Venus and Mars closely conjunct, very close conjunct, the chances of separation in the marriage is definitely there. Then you have to look at your seventh lord, seventh house, and Libra sign as well. So please look at that. You will come across a lot of charts like that. If you have Venus and Mercury sitting together in the seventh house, it shows many relationships. Okay. Again, you have to look at how close they are. You have to look at what the seventh lord is. If it is in the seventh house, 99% of the chance, and if they're closely conjunct, and there is no positive impact on that, definitely I've seen people having multiple relationships. Now you want to look at the eighth house and the 12th house, how secret the relationship is, or is it open relationship between the partners? But it definitely has, it definitely multiplies relationship. People with Venus and Mercury, they have the ability to manage many relationships at the same time, and the other person wouldn't even know, or their partner wouldn't even know, or they're managing their partner in such a way that they don't really care, and they have relationship with other people on the outside. So Venus, Mercury, Venus, Mars, you want to have a look at. Okay, now, if there's no divorce, but it doesn't mean there's no fights in the marriage. So what are the years when you want to have a look at it? If there's multiple fights or there are too many fights in the marriage. So usually Saturn, whenever Saturn transits 12th house from moon, or 12th house from ascendant, or moon sign, or second house from ascendant, or second house from your moon sign, or definitely Saturn's transiting your 7th house, 6th house, and 8th house. 8th house is basically called Daya. When I said 12th on the moon and the second house, that's basically known as Sati. So it's 2.5, 2.5, and 2.5 years each from the moon and or ascendant. These are the trouble years for you, okay? And the chances are, if you're in trouble, definitely there would be the boats would be rocking in the marriage as well. So you want to have a look at those. If there is a Jupiter aspect to it, it may somehow reduce the conflict. It may reduce the friction, but the chances are that there would be definitely some kind of turmoil in marriage. Saturn transiting over Venus or Libra sign, that can bring a worldwide, it can bring certain problems. But specifically, if Saturn is transiting through Venus, it definitely brings certain kind of problems you want to have a look at. If you're running through a Mahadasha of Saturn and Venus being your 7th lord, or Saturn being your 7th lord, it can bring some ups and downs, or some rocks in your marriage as well. Jupiter, Rahu, Saturn, Rahu, Mahadasha, you want to have a look at. These are the Mahadashas which are disturbing, and whenever there is a turmoil in life, there is definitely some turmoil in married life as well. Again, Rahu transiting over your 7th house, it brings secrecy in your marriage, some illusion in your marriage, or it could create doubts about your partner in your marriage. There may be nothing, but you may automatically start thinking, oh, my partner's cheating, he's behaving differently, and so on and so forth. Maybe it's nothing, but you start thinking like that. So that's Venus in the 7th house. There's so much more that I can share, but I'm running out of time. I have to get back to work. Oh, I have to make one more video in Hindi as well. So keep tuning in. There's so much more coming in. There's so much more responsibilities. I think I have a responsibility to bring this out to you guys. If you like the videos, if you If you have any doubts, if you have conflicting information, please come back to me. Let me know how it goes. And keep subscribing, keep liking the videos, and share my videos as much as possible. That'll help me as well. So keep tuning in. Till the next day.